Time, weather, and
Always.
the very
This is Radio VSB at 1450 at the top of the dial.
Good day, Bermuda. You are tuned to AirWaves, the program that has a look at broadcasting over the last many decades, about 70 years in Bermuda. And today I'm going to take two names, Smith and George. And there may be lots of folks in Bermuda with that name, Smith and George. But if you add three extra letters, three actual capital letters, pun intended, you get George Smith from ZFB. And we would like to welcome him to Airwaves today. George, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you, Al, for having me.
Yes, and where do you start? Basically at the beginning. And I just want you to explain to us, like, for example, where did you go to school? How did you get started in the whole arena? Like,
The whole
where did it
arena.
begin? Where did it begin?
Okay. Well, I attended Elliott School in Devonshire, and then Bermuda Technical Institute. During the summer of the year that I was coming out of elementary, going into high school, I got a job in the garage as a trainee, apprentice. And I was doing that after I finished school as well. And one day, when I was about 18, 19, visiting my girlfriend, who later became my wife, they knew Sturgis. ZFB had just started.
Sturgis C. Griffin Jr.
SCGJR.
SCGJR.
And they said one night, let's go on up and meet him, because they knew him, I didn't. And we went on up to Barclay Road.
Barclay Road.
And as we walked into the newsroom, we looked through the window, and he was in there snapping, putting tapes in and talking, and the earphones on, reaching back, turning on music. I was flabbergasted.
So this would have been obviously 62, 63, or?
Somewhere around that time.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
somewhere around that time.
Okay.
And the next thing I knew, we went up a couple of more nights, and he said, listen, we're getting ready to transition into television, and I'm going
Okay.
into television, and we need
Right.
somebody to take over the show. And just out of the top of my head, I said, I'll do it. He says, you would? I says, yeah.
So okay, not having any experience in broadcasting, so you just felt like the urge to, look, I can do this.
That was a joke. I'm serious.
That was a joke and you're serious.
That was a joke. So I didn't get up there for another 3 weeks. And when I did go up there, the roof went off. There it is, we're getting ready to go in, you're not ready. And immediately, I became serious. Started to train, and when they were getting ready to go on down, we took on.
So you trained at Barclay Road under Sturgis, because there were other people there. You had, I think Ira Phillip was there.
Yes, your dad.
And my dad, yeah, Lee Harvey was there. I think, was he on the air at that time?
I'm
Because
not so sure Lee
yeah.
Harvey was there yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm not so sure. He could have been,
Right.
because I was only getting up there in the evening, so I didn't see everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. But at that time, yes, who was on there?
Was Les Campbell there?
Les was there.
Les Campbell?
Uh-huh. It goes back so far that I sort of like when we moved to by the sea.
Right.
It seemed like some folks didn't start or didn't go down with us. But that was only part-time for me, because I was still working in the garage in St. George.
Okay, so you were doing an evening shift.
Training still
training
and
shift.
going up, yes.
So I'll ask you this, I ask everyone this. Do you remember the first time you sat in front of that microphone, the very first time, and you hit?
Ella can never forget it.
Tell us about
After
it.
finishing our training, Sturgis gave myself and cousin Juicy a half hour.
Cousin Juicy was Derek Simons.
Derek Simons,
Derek
that's
Simons,
right.
yes, good.
And we were training more or less together.
Wow, okay.
Some of the evenings we would go up. We would just be the switcher for Sturgis. He would sit over at the news desk, and we would do the switching. But now it came our turn. He gave us a half hour each. Theme was playing. Everything was all set. I knew the board, hand over fist. I knew it blind, as it were. The theme song went off. I turned the mic on and froze.
Do not feel bad. I think a lot of people, even including myself, you go live and you're like, come on, you know.
Yeah, I froze. And Sturgis came in, he turned the mic off, started the music, and he had some words.
Choice words?
Choice words. And I got myself together, and I more or less that night, for the first half hours, I had to turn it over to Juicy at about 11:30.
Right.
I just mainly played music. I didn't
Okay.
say too much. Gave
Kind
the
of-
time, the weather, and that's it.
What kind of music was it? It was a particular show where you just sort of like
At
hit
that
everything?
time, it was R&B.
R&B.
Otis Redding.
Motown.
You know, Motown sound.
Yes,
and
yes.
Memphis sound. Yes.
Because I'm listening to you now, and I tell people, you know, you have a natural voice in broadcasting, from what I hear.
Thank you.
And so, like, sometimes me and Janelle, we talk about it up here at the station. It's like having a natural voice, but then getting trained to
Yes.
do so that must have been a sort of a baptism of fire for you.
Indeed it was.
Wow.
Indeed it was.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So you moved down, the entire operation moved down to North Shore. But for our viewers and listeners, that would be by the sea, which is, the building's actually no longer
No longer
existing.
there. No.
So how was that transition for you? Because now we're talking about not only radio, we're talking about television. And so when you moved down to by the sea, how was that transition for you? Talk to me about that.
Okay, I was still in the garage,
Right.
and I was only coming up nights. So the transition was taking place as it were, the actual moving, and the building of the TV station. Of course, there was
Right.
nothing up at Barclay Road for
Right,
that.
yeah.
But that was going on. We were not allowed to go down there during the day while they were doing that. But when the radio station went down, that's when it was different. When I say different, Sturgis went over into television, and then a lot of us were able to get in on the nights. So it was only part-time for a couple of years,
Wow.
just doing
Okay.
nights, you know. And then it moved on to the Saturday show after.
This is radio, all
yeah,
radio.
all radio.
Okay.
It moved on to the evening show, the 5 o'clock jazz hour with Percy Painter.
Percy Painter, yeah. I was
Yes.
about to ask you if you could reel off some names for us, because Percy was up at Barclay. Yeah, he moved
Yeah,
down there.
he was up there. Percy Painter, he was doing at that time. If I can get it. Cy Hall.
Cy Hall. Another one.
That's right.
Another Bermudian voice. Go ahead.
Kelly Zool, who's still
on
in
the air.
broadcasting. After Cy Hall came Sturgis.
Right.
At 10 o'clock.
Okay.
10 to 2. And then Lee Harvey came along.
Yes.
3 o'clock, we find that Cy Hall came back in the afternoon.
Wow.
Until 5. Percy Painter. Marlene B. after a while.
That's right,
took
because
on
she,
the
Marlene B. Landy,
radio.
she,
Yes.
oh, yeah, well, I mean, she was an integral part of the station, even during the move from Barclay Road down to North Shore.
On the North Shore.
Yeah.
So those are the early days in the late 60s.
Wow.
Yes.
I would have
in
been
the
3.
late 60s.
I would have been 3 years old. My dad tells me stories, Ingham tells me stories of the
Yes.
transition. It was a very interesting time in Bermuda because the things were changing so much, and a lot of the things that were happening in Bermuda were sort of reflective of what was happening in the United States at the same time. So when television came in, I mean, from what people tell me, you know, that was almost what Montague Shepard did with broadcasting was almost considered impossible. And when they came on the air in 1965, it was almost unbelievable for a lot of people. And I was young. Do you remember the night they went on television? Do you remember that first night?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I do not remember the first night that television went on. But subsequent nights after that,
Right.
I do remember, because I was more interested in radio.
Yeah.
And part-time as well. We only went up at night.
Okay, because it's funny, we interviewed Mike Bishop, and he said, you know, as much as he did television, he really enjoyed radio. Radio has an appeal. What is it about radio that you really liked?
The amazing part to me, you're sitting in a room by yourself, talking to tens of thousands of people, depending on where you are. But in Bermuda, we had a good portion of the population.
Oh, I believe that.
Yes,
oh,
we
I
had
know
a
that.
good portion. A quick story: when I was doing the gospel program in the morning after Kelly,
Right.
if I was late, and I would go to town, people I never saw, never knew before. You made me late this morning.
Yes.
And so they depended on radio from the time they woke up until the time they went to sleep at night.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of radio
Yeah.
in college, and I did a little bit of radio, not much. Most of my work's in television, but I get what you're saying. You hit that, you go live.
Yes.
And have you ever had a hot mic moment?
I know I have not had one, but I heard one time. And of course, the person denied it, but I could hear a pin drop on radio
Right.
outside,
Yes.
listening to radio. I could hear a pin because I knew the layout. I knew which phone was ringing, which line. I knew which mic was open. It was a ball.
Yeah. I talked to Sturgis was he was the first manager up here. So
Yes.
Sturgis told me a lot about, you know, how it was, you know, and how in some ways I would say not renegades, but you guys were reinventing radio,
Yeah.
you know, for Bermuda. Bermuda had been sort of monopolizing radio for so long that when the new voices came and the new president, I mean, I can only imagine the energy that you guys had, you know, and ladies had for doing that kind of work. What we're going to do now, we're going to take a short break, real quick break, and then we'll come back, and then we're going to talk about television.
All right.
Okay?
Sure.
We're talking with George Smith, ZFP George Smith, and we'll be right back on AirWaves. The following message is brought to you by the Transport Control Department and the Road Safety Office. Did you know that the correct use of signals is a key element in safe driving? The purpose of signals is to inform other road users of your presence or what you intend to do. To avoid road collisions that are caused by improper use of signals, always make sure you check your mirrors to make sure it is safe to carry out a maneuver. If you use a direction indicator, see that it is turned to neutral as soon as your maneuver is completed. If your vehicle's direction indicators or brake lights are not in working order, or the vehicle is not fitted with them, you must give hand signals. We must all do our part in making our roads safer. Do your part by ensuring that you give the appropriate signal clearly and in good time. A message from the Transport Control Department and the Road Safety Office. Welcome back to AirWaves. If you've just joined us, we're talking with a very special person right now. His name is George Smith of ZFB fame. And before we go any further, well, he spoke about radio.
Yes.
Radio got you started.
Yes.
From Berkeley Road down to North Shore by the sea. And then there must have been a transition, a point where you went into television.
Yes.
Because I've got some memories, but just tell me how you actually started to do TV.
Yeah. Well, having gotten engrossed into radio,
Right.
they hired me full time to
So
radio.
full time. Okay.
Yes, and then folks were coming and going. Was a lot of part time folks in those days.
Yeah.
And they wanted some cameramen and folks for telecine and switching.
Yeah.
And I liked camera, so I said, I'll try some camera work. Well, they needed to train some folks, and they brought this man from England, could have been Scotland, to train us.
Right.
And so I remember Sidney Robinson, myself,
Lee Tucker.
Lee Tucker. He was the manager, as it were.
Right, right.
Yeah. So this time period was about 3 to 5 years after television was on the air.
Was Larry Eben still there, or
Larry Eben, yeah, he was there at the time.
Charles Pitt?
Charles Pitt.
Okay. So they wanted some cameramen. You
Yes.
started to train. So what was? Tell me what type of camera you used.
Okay. We started out, they already had, I watched Lee Tucker carrying about 3 suitcases out.
That would have been the
One was the Oracle, it was
Oracle,
called. It
yes.
was Sound On.
And a lot of people don't know. Some people do, but that was the first sound on film camera in Bermuda.
That's
ZFB
right.
pioneered that.
Yes, that's right.
So if you had to go, say, and you didn't need sound, what would you use?
I would take along what is known as the Bolex.
The what?
Bolex.
How do you spell that?
16 millimeter camera.
Wait a minute. It didn't look anything like this, did it?
That must be the one.
Is this the one?
That could be.
It might be. Here, why don't you hold it?
Wow, this is my baby. Oh, wow.
Actually, it still works.
Well, gee, well, we didn't have all these cameras
All the
in those
lenses?
days, all those lenses rather. But oh yes,
Is that it?
She's wonderful, man. The speeds on her. Oh wow. Oh hell, you made my day.
Now you
Let me
can't
give
keep
you
it.
back this.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. Do you know people are still using this today?
Is that right?
People, independent filmmakers are still using it. And I told the production people, I said, I'm going to give them a little surprise when he comes up here.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a couple of memories
Yes.
of, I was a student at West Pembroke. I was about 5 or 6, I think. And the school had an open house somewhere in the assembly hall, so all the children were sitting, we were sitting there in the morning. And teacher said, I think it was Miss Mange, I don't even remember Beryl Mange.
Yes.
She says, and the television people are coming up here, so you children just sit still. So we sat still, and I'm sitting there, and who comes in the room? It was you. Now, I don't think you remember. You came in there, you had the Bolex, and you were just going to get some B-roll shots of this stuff. And I sat there, and you had a little step ladder, and you climbed up the step ladder, and you slipped, and you literally fell, but you didn't really hurt yourself. You slipped down, the ladder fell, and all I remember is you taking the camera and throwing it in the air. So I might break my elbow, but I'm not going to break the station's camera. I remember that vividly. And then you set up, and then you did the shots, and you left. And then I also remember it was a fire. This would have been in the early 70s. It was a fire on Dock Hill. And it was a small fire in a house, and you came up, you were on the corner of my house on top of the hill. You were shooting with the Bolex. I said, oh, that'll be on TV tonight. So anyway, but what was that like, shooting with film as opposed to videotape? And like, what did you do? You shot the film, then what?
It was a process.
Yes.
With the video, you just shoot it and you can watch it back. But we had to go down to the studio and take that stuff out of the camera, put it through solutions, processing this stuff. It all came out negative. We still were not in a positive mode at that time.
Okay, so you shot the film, but it came out as a negative.
Yes.
Okay, I guess that was to save time and processing and chemicals, I suppose.
Well, we didn't have the equipment for positive.
Yeah,
So what we did, we shot it took it out and we put it through the telecine and reversed the polarity.
Inverted the picture, so the
Exactly.
viewers saw a positive image.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, it's interesting that Mr. Ingham told me that the British BBC came down, Thomson Corporation came
Yes.
to help you guys, and that's what the British did.
Uh-huh.
They would shoot it on negative, and hey, for time,
Yeah.
you know, so you had, was it silent and sound film?
Well, only the Bolex will only do
Right.
silent, but sound, we did the same thing.
So the sound for our viewers was actually recorded right on the film at the same time, right?
On the negative strip.
Right. So you had
That's
to physically cut the.
That's right. They cut the film, joined it together to different pictures, and cut out what you didn't need.
That must have been. Well, for me anyway, I would have find that. I mean, I did a little bit of film in college, but the way you're talking about it must have been exciting. I mean, like scoop-wise.
Can you imagine?
Yes.
We were the first to do cup match and give an hour's playback at night.
On film.
On film. Negative
Now,
film.
That must have been difficult because, well, tell me about it.
Well, we would go up, catch the first ball. The Bolex, the reel,
Yeah.
held, I think it was 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So you 3 reels of that, and you've got yourself a half hour.
Wait a minute. So the Oricon or the Burlex?
The Oregon.
Oh, the Oricon. Okay.
Yeah,
Because you had the magazine, right? So
Yeah,
you could shoot
big
600.
magazine.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So after we had completed the morning shooting,
Yeah.
people like Winston Jones and Joe Brown, commentating.
Yeah. Didn't Buckner's Bean commentate at any point? Bunkers
Bunker,
Bean?
yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
I forgot his first name, but that's
Yes.
what we know. Yeah.
Yeah. So after we had shot the morning's reel,
Yeah.
I would leave it with either Delano or Sydney or someone else, and I would take those reels and go back to the studio to process it so that after the news, we could show a half hour
Right.
and more of the day's play.
Can you imagine if we had any of that film today?
It's a lot of work.
Oh, I know. My
Takes a lot
dad
of
told me
people.
the story of him and Lee
Uh-huh.
when Clarence Parfitt was he went down and tore those wickets.
Yes.
The station wasn't on the air yet, but they shot all this film, and they said it was the first time you could hear a cup match as seeing it as well.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess it was the same thing for news conferences, right? When you had to shoot film. And
Yes.
I guess the other station was shooting films, that being was shooting film as well.
Yes.
You ever lend them film, or they lend you film?
A couple of times. Couple of times. Not the sound on, but
Like if
now and
let's say you were short a reel of film, was there any camaraderie like that? Or
we did a little thing, and we like to help each other out.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Barclay Adams at that
Barclay
time
Adams,
was
yes.
yeah, working with ZBM.
That's incredible. So that means, so now we're heading into the 70s, the black and white.
Yeah.
So then they made the shift to color. How was that?
Well, can you imagine taking 3 suitcases of stuff, film,
Yeah.
cameras, tripod,
Yeah,
and to get something,
yeah.
and to go out with a little camera that you can put on your shoulder.
Yes.
And on the other shoulder, you would have the recorder.
Yeah, the tape deck.
Yep. And you're able to shoot whatever you wanted and play it back before you left the scene. That was
yeah.
like 200 years or more.
It was magic, right?
Jumping into
When I was about 8, I remember my aunt got one of the first color TVs.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's before you had the tape, the news announcer would be in color.
Yeah.
But the film would be in black and white. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, my gosh, so that must have been an interesting time. Filming. Did you ever do any okay, I'll tell you what you told me.
Yeah.
He said there was a gentleman that every time he saw you, he never called your name. He would say, you told me, was it George Smith?
He would say, Channel 8.
Channel 8.
Set up in use. I don't know if he knew my name. What he knew was Channel 8.
Yeah, I was told that it said when you're doing the news, just say Channel 8 as opposed to the call letters because people know 8 on the television.
Right.
That's where
Correct.
you see
Yes.
it. So. Do you have a shot of your career? When you were out filming, was there any particular shot that was like, oh gosh, this is the shot of my career? this is, wow, a big one.
Oh, my goodness. I don't have it.
Not that you have. But
They sold it. When on the dock, they were bringing in a new crane.
Right.
And so they were bringing this crane off the ship.
Yeah.
And it got just about halfway in the air and over the edge of the ship, and the hawser broke.
Oh, wow.
And landed on the ship. I'm there up on number 6, I think, and I'm shooting, and I've got this thing falling. And there were a couple of guys that were watching with me, came over and says, hey, man, you got her.
And you got it. You had it.
Camera.
So, but you had it on film?
But I had it, yeah.
Was it on sound film or?
Oh, no. This was
on the Burlax?
Yeah.
The Burlax. I'm going to let you touch it again before we leave.
Yeah, we got that. That
Yeah.
was, oh, my goodness, that was precious cargo.
Yeah.
Next thing I knew, the company was down to ZFP to buy that film.
Buy the film?
Yes. There are some other things
Yeah.
that happened, too, such as the night that Sharples was shot. The
So
governor.
that would be Sir
Richard
Sharples, who was a governor in 70. What?
I
When did he
don't
come in?
remember.
Well, I know he was assassinated in 73.
73.
So you would have probably been here in 72,
71,
something like that.
70,
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a dark time.
It was. We were down at Carl Island Hotel.
Right.
And he was doing a speech down there, and that was a Saturday night. It was kind of late. When we finished, and I packed up, went on home. Right. Phone rang.
So you would have, one second, you would have shot this on film then?
Bolac. Sound.
Sound, okay.
Yeah, we had sound.
Okay, so continue. Go
ahead. We had sound. And went home, didn't even bother go to the station. I passed the station, and went home. I was living in West Bankbrook at the time. And I don't know what hour in the morning, Ira Phillip called and says, the governor's been shot. And anytime you hear like that, it's like you're wide awake, your clothes are already on, per se, you know.
Well, I tell you real quick, what we'll do, we'll take a break. I remember that because my father was in England training. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll finish up, and you can tell me more about that, the situation there in 1973. We're talking with George Smith, a very interesting conversation. Glad to have him here on AirWaves. We'll be right back. Importing animals into Bermuda. All animals arriving in Bermuda must be accompanied by the following: a copy of the import permit issued in advance by the Bermuda Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, the original health certificate issued within the 10 days prior to the animal's arrival, which includes the identity, contact information, and signature of the issuing veterinarian, a properly endorsed CITES document for an animal of an endangered species. Animals arriving without the proper documentation are immediately returned to the point of origin. Visit your veterinarian to obtain a health certificate and veterinary statements within 10 days of your animal's arrival. If the animal is coming from the United Kingdom, visit the local veterinary inspector within 5 days of your departure for an export permit. The application forms can be found on gov.bm. If you're applying for an import permit for dogs and cats, forward the application form and veterinary documents to this office via email at animals@gov.bm or fax it at 441-232-0046. Please ensure that your email address or fax number is shown on the application form. We will usually respond within 1 business day. Import permits will be valid for 10 days marked from the date of the veterinary certificate. For more information, visit the Ministry of Environmental and Natural Resources at gov.bm.
CITV Channel 2.
welcome back to AirWaves. We are, of course, continuing our conversation with George Smith of ZFB. And when just before the break, we were talking off camera about Sir Richard Sharples and that period of the assassination.
Yes.
So you said you were at Coral Island.
Yep.
You were filming, was it him and Lady Sharples?
She was there.
She was there, okay.
Yeah, she was there. The government leader at the time,
Right.
Sir Henry Tucker, and
Right.
others. Yes.
I just remember I was a little kid. My father was in England training, and the phone rang at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing I thought, oh my God, something was in my father.
Yeah.
And I heard my mother was like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And I was like, oh. And then we got up, and she said, oh, and then she told us. So anyway, so Ira Phillip calls you.
Yes.
Continue on.
I took whatever equipment, because we always keep the camera loaded. Dashed down, we had the station van dashed down to the gate of down on North Shore Road, and
Government
everything, of Government House, and everything was blocked off. We couldn't get any further, so while the lights were on, all we could do was just shoot up there.
So this would have been dark. This would have been.
This was 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30, 4 in the morning. Yep. So everything was dark. We were confined. Nobody could move back and forth. I'm fortunate to be able to have got down there. I guess it was because of the call letters on the van.
Gotcha.
Get you through
Gotcha.
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
As life does sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
indeed.
that must have been like I said, I remember it as I was young, but it must have been because all the things leading up, like after that. So I do remember that. I mean, the country was at a state of emergency, but I do remember the Sharples funeral. Yeah. And they let schools out that day, and because I lived up Dock Hill.
Yes.
And they had his body was on a Royal Naval frigate, taken from Dock to St. George's, and ZFB being on North Shore. Yes. You had a live shot of the ship going down the harbor.
Right out of the studio door.
Right. Did you cover the funeral yourself in St. George's?
I guess I would have gone to St. George's, and they would use the footage outside of the studio,
right?
And I would have gone to St. George's to do something.
Yeah.
So much has happened in those 18 years that I was in broadcasting. A lot of those details, escaped me. But there are some things that I do remember that I don't have any pictures of or anything like that.
We talk about it all the time, that the stations here, and not necessarily the fault, because imagine trying to store a year's worth of this film. Yeah. Where are you going to put it? Yeah. Stations all over the world, literally, they would hire summer students to come in and pull the news film off the reels so they could get the reels back.
Yes.
And so, in my research, all the film's gone. And there's no 16 millimeter film anywhere. No. And it probably wouldn't have lasted much anyway.
Quite true.
So, getting into the 70s and into the 80s, you were still at ZFB. And then something happened in 82, the merger. Tell me about that.
Well, it was a time of uncertainty, if I can say that. We're going to merge. That means that we're not going to have a job anymore. But Quentin Adness was saying that, everything is going to be fine, and they're not going to lose any jobs. We're going to come on in, and everything's going to be fine. 2 stations, okay? ZFB, ZBM. That was for a little while, and then I understand the merchants said, we're not going to pay one company twice.
Yeah, I've seen that happen when I was in school, where WSE merged with WJT. Similar, and it's difficult you lived it, so.
Yeah, so after a while, there was protests, there was walkout, all of that happens with labor.
And that led to, I guess, the strike in 84.
Yes. And when the strike came about, many folks were made redundant, including myself.
That's right, because every all the radio and television basically went off the air
Yeah.
for some time.
Yeah.
I know that Kenny DeFonce had come on. He was the only broadcaster, but just radio.
At the time, yeah.
At the time, it was a very quiet stretch in Bermuda. But so, at the end of the strike,
Yeah.
and the stations came back, that was where your career stopped
More or less, yes. Yes.
Wow.
In broadcasting.
in broadcasting.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was never like you did any part-time work with ZBM because it was just one company at that point.
I continued on the gospel program for a little while.
Right.
First thing in the morning.
Right.
Yeah. And but that didn't last too long because after that I was reemployed where I am now.
Yes.
38 years marketing the Heritage
Scholarship
Trust
program,
Fund
yes.
program for
yes.
education. Yes.
Did you ever think of maybe going to Kenny DeFonce Broadcasting, and maybe doing some radio or something?
I did not. I was quite satisfied with what I had done in broadcasting.
Right.
But I was called back a couple of Christmases.
Right.
Glenn Keynes
Glenn Keynes, yes.
called me back and asked if I would do a couple of hours on Christmas Day. And I did that. I would keep my hand. I think about it now and then.
You still have the voice. I mean, I enjoy listening to you just so seriously.
Yeah, I would do that, but I've been so busy. You know, I'm busy in the church. You know,
Right.
And
Okay.
I sit on the family panel in the courts, so I'm still busy.
But you seem energetic now, and you seem to be always been an energetic person. When the new governor came here, I think after Sharples, he came to the airport, and I was watching the news that night, and the governor was leaving. You know, in the
Landau?
not the Landau. No, it was
No.
the world, like the
Dame
Rolls
Lot.
Royce. Yeah, the car. Ooh, here we go. Not gonna fall.
I think it was a damn lot.
Yeah, and as the car is pulling out, I see you holding the bull axe running backwards. I said, and I recognized that you ran as backwards as far as you could, until the car went past. And I said, wow. And I'm looking at all these people, and as we begin to wrap up the program, there are so many stories and so many people that have passed through the industry.
Oh, yes.
And unfortunately, there are people that I'm just not going to talk to because they're just no longer with us.
Yeah.
But any names that you want to add to the menagerie of people who
Let's see. Well, we talked of Lee Harvey.
yes,
There are.
Winston Jones. I mean,
Yeah.
he did sports and radio.
Yes.
But Joe Brown. What
Yeah,
about Joe Brown?
Joe Brown.
How did
well,
you?
Joe Brown and I did a lot of traveling together for football, soccer.
Yes, yes.
We went to Santo Domingo,
Yes.
and we stayed there until we won the bronze.
Wow.
The soccer. That was the first one, I think.
So you were
One.
doing TV while he was doing radio, like doing commentary. You were filming.
Well,
or something,
he was
or?
in the newsroom.
Ah, okay.
He was in the newsroom. At that time, I was full-time in television.
Ah.
Yeah, and, part-time doing the gospel program.
Right.
Yeah.
You once told me years ago, and I mean I'm going back maybe a couple of decades, you said that you were at the Botanical Gardens getting some footage, and you said that for some reason you felt like I was picked to be here at this point of history to do this, like almost like you could have been born any other time in history, but you're here holding this camera and you're being creative and you're doing this stuff and I never forgot that. I never forgot that. You were sort of inspirational to me when you said that.
Well,
I find that important.
The only thing I can say on that is I enjoyed what I was doing so much. It seemed like I was the only one doing it.
So I take it sometimes when you went to work, it didn't feel like going to work.
Oh, no. We lived for the next day. When we went to work in the morning, we never knew where we were going to go that day.
Wow.
Take, for instance, I've gone down the channel on cruise ships,
Yes.
gotten off at Five Fathom Hole, I've flown around, where is it, Newport, in a blimp.
Real quick, since you mentioned that, did you were there for the 76 when the tall ships crashed?
I was.
That must have been dramatic.
Well, with all of these tall ships sitting in the harbor,
Yeah.
and then they were going to race off to the United States.
Right.
But when once they cleared the channel, and they started to put the sails up to take the wind,
Yeah.
somebody could not, I don't know, steer properly, couldn't see,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, and they ran into each other.
So you were there,
I was there.
finger on the shutter.
Couldn't miss a thing.
Just like the doc, right?
Like the doc. Yes, that's right.
Let me ask you this as we wrap up. Any words of wisdom or anything you can tell, because a lot of the young generation probably don't even really know what really went on because this was so long ago. Everything's cell phones and,
Yes.
What can we say to younger folks today that maybe, because there's still a lot of it going on. So what would...
Whatever enters your heart that you would like to do, be passionate about it because it can go further. Someone had to bring whatever you're thinking about to a point.
Right.
You can take it further.
Right.
Yes, but you got to be passionate about it.
Wow.
You can't let obstacles keep you in that one place. You have to move on.
And I guess for young people that they proverbially are standing on shoulders of people like yourself who paved this way for them today to have the opportunities and stuff like that. And I think that's just a great thing.
It's a milestone. I mean, the technology that we had to use to produce what we did.
Yes.
Folks who are coming into the industry today would think that would be impossible.
Well, you were spinning gold out of straw.
That's about the size
Well,
of it.
just about to wrap. Got a minute left. I just want to give you this. I just want to let you know this baby one more time.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
I don't have an oracle. It would be too heavy to lift.
Oh, man,
anyway.
you would need Ziggy at this crane. Bring that up here.
No, but the crane doesn't drop, right?
That's right.
Well,
Yes.
George, I just want to thank you for coming on. This has been years in the making. We've been through a pandemic, and we're coming out, and now we're beginning to talk to more and more people like yourself. And I just thank you for being here. It's priceless stuff.
And I thank you for inviting me down. Imagine the son of my friend that I train under is now interviewing me.
I have no words. I have no words except to say we may have you back. Who knows?
That's right. Well, what some folks only knew me by was Big G.
Big G.
Yeah. Some people did not know I was named George Smith.
Wow. Well, people, they know now. Okay. Well, we've just wrapped up another edition of AirWaves, talking to George Smith. It's been really a pleasure talking to him today. And on behalf of the entire CITV team, I'm Seymour, Program Manager. Thank you for joining us.